So, hello everybody, and welcome to the launch day of Ahead of the Curve. Learn to, I keep on getting it wrong, the wrong way around. Learn to fit and sew amazing clothes for your curves. My first book. Will it be my last book? I don't know. Maybe I'll write another one. Thank you so much for joining. We have many people on the call, which is fantastic. You are all automatically muted, but I will be opening it up to questions later if anyone has questions. I'm always very happy to chat. If anyone has met me or been on a webinar before, you know that I'm always open to various questions. And there is already a little poll that you should be seeing there, which is basically asking if you've already ordered it. And it looks as if at the moment, like 87% of the people who've answered the poll already have. I suppose a connected question is, did you already get your copy? Which I think, you know, some people will have and some won't. For those of you in the UK, you probably will have already got yours. And then today it comes out in the US. And depending basically on where you ordered it from is the thing that will sort of like determine whether or not it's been delivered. One thing, just so everybody knows, and it's great and not great at the same time, is that we actually sold out the first print run of the book within a couple of weeks, actually, of it being announced, which was amazing. It shows that it has done much better than the publishers imagined. So they sent it to a reprint already, but you may have heard about all these terrible issues in the US with customs and having things come in the country. So we have hit that. So somewhere there is a container of many of these. My face is stuck somewhere on a boat in the sea off LA going, please get me off the boat. And until those come in, it limits a little bit the ability of more people to get it. Oh, this is the thing that is so difficult. So yes, Ayala, I just saw your note. The meeting is at capacity. I don't know how to change that. I thought I had set it up. I don't think that there's anything I can do right now. So Ayala, you can let those people know. Unfortunately, they will have to watch the recording. Okay, so anyway, so the idea today is I want to share a bit more about the book. I'm going to share with you a bit of the details about like how I came to write it and sort of how I recommend you use it, although, you know, you can use it however you want, but the way I'm thinking about it. We also have a couple, well, we're going to have a couple of the models here. I'm going to have a look and see if they are on the list at some point. And also just very happy to answer any questions. So let's begin at the very beginning. So on the most basic front, Ahead of the Curve is fundamentally a book about fitting. So from that perspective, it's actually fine whatever size you are, like the fitting guidance applies to absolutely any size, because like, you know, a full bust adjustment is a full bust adjustment, or a large bicep adjustment is a large bicep adjustment. What does make it a little bit different is that the patterns that are included are in US size 12 to 32. There has been some confusion about that. This is being published by a British publisher, which means that they've put UK sizes first. So I think most people who make cashmere are used to US sizes, right? But you're seeing UK and US, which is, if you're like 16 to 36, I didn't know cashmere did that. It's our 12 to 32, it's just UK 16 to 36. So those patterns are, one, totally exclusive to this book. They will never be available separate. They will also not be available in our smaller size range for a whole bunch of reasons, but they will only be in these sizes. And also all the pictures that you'll see in the book are of sewists who are in that size range, in the 12 to 32 size range. However, if you're a size 8 and you want to know how to do these adjustments, precisely the same stuff applies. Like, it's exactly the same. It will all apply to people of many sizes. So the reason that I decided to write this book, and it is quite funny because I was actually very against writing a book for a long time. I was like, no, I'm not ever going to write a sewing book. I'm not interested in that. I was approached by the publisher who saw an article that I wrote for the Guardian newspaper in the UK about how much learning to sew had changed my life. And they said, you know, we're seeing a gap in the market for this. And I thought about all the fitting books I had, because I have lots. And I realized that there were a couple of key things where it just kind of didn't work for me very well. The first one is that almost however well they meant, all of them had some element of like judgment or body shaming in them. Now, I think in many cases, like they were kind of trying not to, you know, and trying to be quite neutral. but it didn't get all the way there. So it would be, there'd just be something about like, if you don't have the ideal figure, what's an ideal figure, guys? Like, what even is that? Like, you're making me think about this now. Like, to me, that's like, there's no need to be talking about that. Or they'd be talking about the ways that like your body made clothes fitting difficult. And, there's even a famous one where like, it's a book that's really great, but like, there's a picture of a woman with a paper bag over her head looking in the mirror, like basically like, this sort of idea of like, you're feeling the shame about your body and you need to look at the mirror. Now, it's not that I don't understand that lots of people feel like that. Absolutely they do, but it's not what I want to project and encourage and empower people to feel like, right? Like, I want people to feel like nothing wrong with my body. I just need to change my clothes to fit my body. And so the first thing is I just felt that there wasn't really a book that just really emphasized this like body neutrality to body positive message. And also acknowledge, there are specific tips that I think are more relevant if you're plus size. So for instance, like measuring yourself when you sit down. I'm not sure I'd ever seen that in a fitting book. But if you get bigger when you sit down, which almost all of us do, that is fundamental. Like, if you don't do that, your clothes won't fit you properly. If you only measure standing up and then you decide to make a fitted dress, it will not fit you sitting down. So that is something like incredibly important that was missing in these books. The second thing is that there was always a lot of illustrations. Now, some books, again, do have some more photos, but often I'd be looking at these illustrations going, but that doesn't look like what this thing looks on my body. Like, I can see this picture of trousers that apparently are perfect, but they've got these lines like that. But that isn't what it looks like when I'm looking on me. Like, there's other lines, or maybe it looks like this or that. And it was very confusing. And I was like, you know what? Like, if I'm going to do a fitting book, I want to make it so you're actually seeing photos of like what it really looks like. And I want to see them on bodies like mine as well, because to be honest, it's only so helpful that it is to see, a picture of like like someone with a totally flat stomach when we're trying to talk about stomach adjustments. Like, no, I want to see someone with a tummy like mine. And then the third thing is, especially as a beginner, it can be really hard to understand fit books if the picture of the pattern piece they're using is not the same as yours. So we get this question quite a lot. And it's one of the reasons why we have a lot of tutorials online with our patterns. But people would be like, well, I want to do a full bust adjustment on this, but look, the arm size is different than that. So I don't really understand how I would do it. So that's when I kind of had the brainwave. Well, if we had some simple patterns in the book as well, we could actually make the whole thing very holistic, because it would be like, okay, here's how you do a full bust adjustment on this pattern. So these are the literal pieces you're going to be using. This is exactly what you're going to be doing. And here are the before and afters on that very pattern. So like, exactly what it would look like and where you're trying to get to. So basically, I think some people are like, why have you written another fitting book? Like, there's already fitting books. And those are really the reasons why. Like, I wanted something that like centers people who aren't just really skinny, and basically is like, makes you feel like included if you're not. That's very body positive / body neutral, depending on where you are on that. That actually has pictures of people that you can see rather than just illustrations that are a bit hard to interpret when it comes to fit, and had the patterns. So that is basically how it came to be. So I want to show you a little bit of inside. So let me see if I can get this going. Oh, hold on. Bloop, 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 bloop. It's not very sophisticated here. There's a lovely picture of me not looking like very much like me. So these are the patterns that come in the book, and I'm going to get into them in a little minute. But basically, I start off in the book with slightly more general coverage of the topic of fitting. And some of it is also, like, dare I say, maybe a little bit philosophical. So the first one I wanted to approach really is like, what even is fitting? Like, what do we mean when we say fitting? And what I think is quite interesting is there's been historically quite a lot of like sort of gatekeeping in the sewing community, where people who've been doing it for a long time are like, these are the rules. And I see people being quite freaked out by that, especially say in like Facebook groups, where someone will be like, that shoulder seam is a 1/16 of an inch off on the shoulder. And my response to that is like, well, okay, maybe, like maybe, and I'm not saying that person's wrong, but like, is that really what this person like needs or cares about? And like, what are the consequences? So what I sort of started to cover at the beginning of the book is really thinking about like, what is good fit to you? What do you want? So like, what do you want to look like? Like, so for instance, for me, I really don't like things that are like bunching or digging into me. So I don't want to have that. I want to fix that fit. But I also don't want things that are falling off me. Like there's this kind of middle ground of fit that I am after. But that's very personal to me. You might be different, right? You might think, actually, I like things more on the flowy side, or actually, I really like bodycon things. And that's totally valid. You get to make the decision. How do you want to feel physically, right? Some people have like sensory preferences where some people like sort of feel like hugged, but some people are like, I don't want seams against me. I want things very smooth. How do you want to feel emotionally? And what I mean by this is, what would be a hyper revealing neckline for one person to another person is just like fun and flirty, right? And we get that all the time. Whenever we launch things with like specific necklines, we'll get some people saying, oh, that's really conservative. And some people saying, I wouldn't feel comfortable in that. Well, the good news is with sewing, you can change that, right? And like, that's all part of fit, like thinking about how will you feel. And also how you want to move in the garment. So it's really different. Like if you're making a dress for like a wedding, there you may just really want to look good in photos, you maybe want to look really glamorous, but you know, if you couldn't like do an obstacle course, you wouldn't be bothered. But if you're making something for the weekend when you're running after your toddler, which is a lot of my life, you have totally different considerations, right? Like I don't care so much about like, I don't know, like, am I getting like a perfect fit through here? If I'm just like covered in yogurt and like crawling through a tunnel, I want to be able to crawl through that tunnel, right? And I'm going to need a little bit of ease and be able to move. So there's different considerations. It's not one thing. And one of the things I want to try and liberate people from as well is like this sense of like overfitting. Like there's this perfect goal you're trying to get to, right? And like, it's really hard to get there. And like, you have to try so hard. And one of the messages in this book is like, you know what, you can achieve much better fitting clothes than you could buy in stores with a few adjustments. And that is massive. Like that is a huge achievement and will make you feel great in your clothes. You don't have to hold yourself up to like unbelievably crazy high fitting standards unless you want. If that's your jam, that's great. But if it isn't, it's not a problem. So the next thing, yes, so there's lots of stuff at the beginning. There's basically a preparation chapter where I cover things like measuring yourself. I cover waist heights actually, so you can see that page here. Again, personal preference, but you can see here me in the honeyborn dress where the waist is intended to be. And then I've scooched the belt down to sort of where a lot of people will be like, no, this is where I wear my waists. Now, it's just on me, but what I'm trying to make clear here is that different waist heights suit different people. And for me and my type of body, I think higher waists actually look much better. There's also an element of the rule of thirds here, if you've heard of this, that like it tends to look best like proportionately and almost sort of artistically when you divide your body into thirds rather than halves, which is what you're seeing in the lower waist one. But this is the kind of thing where I'm just trying to sort of like demonstrate. Ultimately, it is absolutely up to you. If you look at these two pictures and you said, I much prefer the lower waist one, go for that. There's no problem with that. But that's the really fun thing about being able to fit and alter things yourself, is that you can choose which one. There's also a little section on fitting if you use mobility aids. So this is another thing that I felt like I wasn't seeing reflected in existing fitting books. They were just kind of assuming that everyone's the same, right? That everyone's straight size, that people don't spread when they sit down, and that people must all be moving through the world in exactly the same way. So I worked with some people who use mobility aids to kind of ask them like, well, what are the considerations you have? So there's basically, you know, this isn't a huge amount of information, but it's sort of addressing like the principles and the things you might want to think about. And basically there are references to other places in the book where you can get information on those adjustments. So then the meat of the book is in these fit clinics. So there's a different one for each area of the body. So there's like one for bust, one for shoulder and neck, one for the back, one for your lower half, and so on. And basically what you can see here is an example where you get a before and an after on a plus size person. And in this case, it's about forward shoulder adjustments, which actually is exceptionally common because who of us are not doing this all day at a computer or on our phone or on a sewing machine, or in my case for a long time breastfeeding like this. It's a very, very, very common adjustment to make. I'm trying to sit up, put my shoulders back now. So basically I talk about what it is. And then also signs you might need it. So like, how would you know that you needed how would you know that you needed a forward shoulder adjustment? And what I have in there is sometimes there's different things, right? So for instance, like if you have bunched fabric in the small of your back, you might not need a sway back adjustment. You might need something else. So in some of the cases, it says, okay, don't assume this is the adjustment you need, kind of explains it a bit more. And the whole book is predicated on the idea that you are going to be making trial garments, right? So a muslin, toile, depending on what you call it. And basically what I'm suggesting is you go ahead and you make the toile, and then you start looking to see what fit adjustments you need. There's actually a pretty comprehensive section that talks about the exact process, because I realize sometimes that's missing, and basically explains like, okay, evaluate these things, make these adjustments if you already can, make the muslin, and then here are the steps you're basically going to go through. And it is an iterative process. In some cases, you might need to go through that more than once. But what's really nice, and I think when you're a beginner to fitting, it's not so obvious, is that usually there's just a handful of things you need, and you need them over and over again. So for instance, like if you're a person who needs a full bust adjustment on regular patterns, you're probably going to need them most of the time. So you're going to want to learn that, and you're going to want to learn to get good at it. But the chances are, like, if you don't need a narrow shoulder adjustment on one thing, you probably generally don't need it either. So although you might think like, oh my goodness, there's like dozens of things to learn here, there's probably a bit less than you think. So that is the core of the book. So I know everyone was very excited to get the patterns too. And the way that I designed these patterns was actually very different to the way that I normally design patterns. So usually, you know, like there's all kinds of things. I'm looking at trends, I'm looking at requests and so on. But in this situation, what I actually wanted to do was look at what do I need to demonstrate? Like what adjustments do I want to make? And then backwardly, well, what garments would I need in order to demonstrate those things, right? So it's like, well, I need darts and I need princess seams. I need knit things and woven things. I need things with sleeves and not sleeves. I need top half and bottom half. And then I sort of took that. And then I also took, what have people been asking us for over the years? You know, like what's exciting and like what requests have come up. And out came these patterns. So they are simple patterns very deliberately, because the whole idea is that I'm taking you through a kind of a simple approach to fitting, where it's not going to be like unnecessarily complicated, but they're also very cute, I think. And they make a nice capsule wardrobe. So the first one is the curso top here. So it's a sleeveless top, it's V-neck, and it has a half lining. So what that means is you don't have to do bias binding or a facing, because actually it's lined to basically beneath your boobs. It's darted, there's darts on the inside and outside, and it has a center back seam. So this pattern is used extensively in the book. I show you how to do full bust adjustments, gaping arm side here, gaping neckline. We have a sloping shoulder adjustment, and I also show you how you can do sway backs using this pattern. This is probably my most worn pattern out of the book, because it's just great to like throw on. And as with all cashmere patterns, it's been designed with people with big boobs in mind, right? So like that's my default, that you have big boobs. And so what I found is that the proportions work like really, really well. And it's very comfortable. So I've worn mine a lot. It's also got a V in the back. You can't see in these pictures. It's not a low V. It certainly doesn't show like your bra, but it has a sort of like a V that sort of nicely matches it in the back. Then we have the honeyborn dress. So I think maybe this has been the most popular one so far, based on like seeing people's responses and what people are making. So it's sort of a classic fit and flare dress. It has a gently gathered skirt, but the skirt is also paneled. So it isn't just a big rectangle, because traditionally big rectangles gathered, they just don't have very much shape. Which if you're a curvy person, you've got a lot of shapes going on, you know? So broadly speaking, if there's a lot of shapes going on, you want to reflect those in the patterns. So it's paneled as well as being a little bit gathered. And I am someone who historically was very anti-gathered skirts, but I wear this one with no problem. Like it really does not add very much bulk. It's not like a highly gathered pattern. And then you have a pretty classic darted bodice. So it's got bust darts and waist darts, and there's darts in the back. And there's a elbow length sleeve. You can certainly shorten that or lengthen it. as I said, everything is simple. So we don't have different views and the patterns don't have pockets, for instance, but they're all super easy to do that. So you actually can use the Upton pocket in, well, I guess not the tops, but in the dresses or the pants. And we will have some stuff coming up on the blog, basically talking about like easy hacks, but they're really, really, you know, certainly don't be like, well, I wouldn't make the honeycomb because it doesn't have long sleeves. Like it's been made in a way that you can make long sleeves very easily. We were limited in the number of like sheets of paper that we could have in the book. So under normal circumstances, a normal cashmere pattern would have them all included, right? But we couldn't do that in this case. But that is that. The next one is the Stanway t-shirt modeled by the very gorgeous Corey here, which is a classic raglan t-shirt. And I will say that is something we have been asked for years. I've been very pleased to see the response so far of people making it, that basically like it's the best fitting raglan through the bust they've ever had. And that was the goal, because raglans can be very hard. If you have big boobs, you can end up with a lot of folds and strange things going on in the armpit. So we worked really hard to eliminate that, and we managed. So on this, we show you how to do a knit full bust adjustment. And I should say, sorry, every time I'm saying full bust adjustment, we also have the small bust adjustment version. I just always think big boobs because I have them, but we have small bust adjustments for all these things as well. And we also show you how to do, and this is something which is not readily in books, I have to say, a full bicep adjustment on a raglan sleeve, because many people need that too. Then we have the foxhill dress. It's actually one of my favorites. It is made for ponte or heavy knits like scuba. It is princess seamed, has a sort of gently flared skirt, V-neck. It's got a faced neckline, so you have like a clean finish. Very, very comfortable, very chic. And I will also say very easy to fit. So if you want to make one of the patterns out of here and you're like, I just want to make the one that's least likely to involve any fit changes, the foxhill or the Stanway would be the two that I would start with. And then the Magna pants. So at the moment, cashmere, we're not so much known for our pants. We have two. This is our third. And these are basically slimmer legged pants than what we've had so far. And they have a flat front and a sort of gently elasticated back and a side invisible zip too. And what that means is that we were able to make the waist a little bit more sleek, because we weren't relying on like tons of elastic to bring it in from your hip to your waist. You can skip the side invisible zipper if you're like me and your waist size is a bigger size than your hip. So let's just say you're like a 28 waist, but you're a 24 hip. You don't need that zip. You could get them on without the zip. But if you go the opposite way, you absolutely must. So if your waist is smaller, so let's just say your waist is a 12 and your hip is a 16, you have to have the zip or they won't fit on you. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there if you need the zip or not, but we've included the instructions on how to do it. So that is sort of like the very, very quick summary of what is in the book. I am going to jump in and start looking at the questions. Because there are so many people here, it's probably easiest if you ask the questions through chat, and I will get to as many as I can. So, okay, let me go and have a look. Do we address the pear-shaped figure? So absolutely, it's not, so there's a couple of sections in the book where I talk about different body types. And I don't, broadly speaking, have like, what should I say? Like, I don't have some like holistic system. You know, there's that one that famously has like Madame Peanut and like potato shapes and stuff. I don't have that. What I do have, for instance, is this part that's on like belly shapes. So I have a picture of a D tummy and a B tummy. That is my tummy. And I also have a picture of like an apron tummy, you know, where your tummy comes down a little bit. And so I talk about fitting for those. But broadly speaking, you know, if you have a pear-shaped figure, you're going to be addressed in the book through the section on grading between sizes, the section on full bum adjustments and full thigh adjustments. And so effectively, yes, it's not positioned as this is for the pear-shaped people, but you are going to get the information that you need to know. Okay, let me have a look. So one clarification, some of you who've already got them, you're going to know this already, but the patterns are printed and they are in the back. And when you open them up, they are on heavy paper, not tissue paper. They are double-sided, and what that means is you do have to trace them. You can't just cut them out, because if you cut them out, you will lose some. And they are slightly overlapped. So it's not like Burda, right, where I feel like it's like one of those magic eye things where you have to be like, to try and find your size. You can see this is quite clear. They're overlapped, but it's very clear. But it does mean that you do have to trace them. You can also get digital downloads. There is a code. I've been asked so many times where it is. It's in the how to use this book chapter. I don't want to be sarcastic to anyone, but occasionally I'm like, read the how to use the book chapter to figure out how to use the book. That's where they are. So the digital is available for anyone who buys the book in hard copy or the ebook copy. And I will just say now, if you are someone who hasn't ordered yet, or you're being affected by the delays at customs, the Kindle/ebook version, which you can read actually on like any laptop, you don't actually have to have a Kindle to read it. It's available immediately. It's also very cheap. It's so cheap. I don't love that, actually, I have to say. It's like, here's 5 patterns of mine and for almost no money. But if you are desperate to read it, or you're desperate to get the patterns, that is actually available. And funnily enough, we actually have some people who bought both of them because they wanted to do that. So we have the question, this is a very specific question, but are the fabric requirements in meters or yards? So everything's available in both. Okay, so inches and centimeters and yards and meters are used throughout the book at every single point. I mean, laboriously so from my perspective. At every single point, it's explained in imperial and metric. And the sizing in the book, there's also like EU reference sizing. It's not continually through the book referenced, but it's in the tables. The sizing is exactly the same as current Kashmir sizing. So what that means is 2 things. One, if you already know your basic Kashmir size, it will be the same in these, right? They're precisely the same as our normal patterns. The second thing is, if you don't already know, we have a very nifty sizing calculator on our website. So you go to kashmirette.com/sizing, and you type in your high bust, your full bust, your waist, your hip, and your rough bra size. Don't worry too much about that, as long as you're in the ballpark. And it will literally tell you what size you make, including, do you have to grade between sizes? And do you have to do a full or a small bust adjustment? So it will actually give you like so much information. And there is a big section at the beginning of the book about how to pick a size. And of course, you're not always going to be using Kashmir. I mean, crazy. I mean, why would you use anyone else? But yes, you're not always going to be using Kashmir. So the sizing calculator will not work for other companies, only works for us. So I have a whole section in there that kind of explains like, how do you interpret these charts and how can you get to the best possible starting point? Because I actually often see, for instance, in our Facebook community groups, someone will be like, they've made something and they try it on and they're like, oh, I think I need to make these 16 adjustments. And actually they just made the wrong size, right? So they're like, oh, I made the like 18, but this and this and this. And I'm like, you're in a 14. That's why you've got all the problems. If you make a 14, you might have no adjustments whatsoever, or you need to grade between sizes, which is something that a lot of people, especially newer people, don't realize you can even do. They just think, well, I'm a 12 and a 14 and a 16, so I'll make the 16 and it will fit me. And that's like ready to wear thinking, right? That's like, I go in a shop, sure, that's what you have to do, but you don't have to do that when you're sewing. So someone just asked me if I have a brick and mortar store. No, I don't. And definitely not going to have one. And right now I actually live in the USA as well. So it's very confusing to people. I am from the UK originally. You can probably tell by my accent, although I will say increasingly people in the UK think I'm American. So that's quite funny. Confusingly for people, I was in the UK for the last year during COVID. I'm a single parent and I run a business and it got a bit too much. So we moved back to my family, but we are back now in America. So I'm British, but I live in America. That's how it works. Let me have a look to see if I have other questions. So I did have questions about whether it's coming out in other languages. So officially, guys, I'm not allowed to tell you. But it is coming out in at least 2 more languages next year. And what I would say is, like if you are interested in a specific language, that's certainly something, you know, you could express online, you could tag the publisher and let them know. There's obviously, as you can imagine, like a whole lot that goes into like deciding to do international print runs. I'm actually not involved in it at all. But yes, it is coming out in some other languages next year. I wouldn't hold your breath. It's not like January 1, but next year. So Laura's asking, do you use actual muslin fabric for your muslins? So this is addressed in a pretty big chapter in the book, all about muslins, because I think there's often not enough information out there about that. So the key points are your muslin has to be the same weight and the same type of fabric in terms of does it stretch or not stretch. So if you are going to be making a silk top, silk is very like a light silk, like silk charmeuse top. Silk is very light, so you need to pick a fabric that's very light, okay? Because if you made something out of canvas, it wouldn't drape in the same way, it wouldn't fit in the same way at all. Like you could make it perfect in canvas and then you'd make it in silk and you'd be like, this doesn't fit me at all, because it wouldn't behave the same way. Also, the silk doesn't stretch. So if you went and made your muslin out of jersey, that also would not tell you the information you need to know, because jersey behaves totally different than a woven fabric. So say you were making silk charmeuse, you need a light, not stretchy thing. So for instance, poly crepe de chine, that would be a great example, right? Flip side, you're going to make a t-shirt. The t-shirt is ultimately going to be made out of jersey. You need something that is stretchy to a similar extent, right? So if your jersey is going to be like 30% stretch, something that's 1% stretch, no. Like a stretch woven, no. Something that's more stretchy, I mean, you could, but if it's going to be very fitted, you're again going to get a like misleading sense of how it is. So you want, like, you don't have to be exact, but you want a ballpark, right? Like if your eventual jersey's 30%, I'd probably want like 20 to 40%. I mean, I'm guessing, but like that range. But if you try and make a muslin of a jersey in like cotton, it will literally not fit, because the way that t-shirts work is they rely somewhat on the stretch of the fabric. I have a whole bunch of examples in the book of how this works. And I also talk about when people say, I want to make a knit pattern in a woven, or I want to make a woven pattern in a knit, I kind of explain when is that possible and when is it not. The bottom line of it is anything that's remotely fitted in a woven, you can make in a knit, and that will be okay. Or if it's got lots of ease, it might end up too big, but broadly speaking, yes. If it's got a lot of details, like from a not fit, from a style point of view, you might have a problem, but fine. Like I wouldn't make the Auburn blazer out of jersey. You could, and it would fit on your body. It would just look weird, right? However, the other way around almost certainly does not work. So to make a knit out of a woven pretty much only works if it's an oversized knit. So if it's very flowy and it's sort of like, you know, kind of Eileen Fisher vibe, maybe. I mean, even then, like, might not be the best idea, but you could. It will fit on your body. But if it's like a t-shirt, you simply can't. Like it will not fit you. There's no point even trying. And sometimes people will ask us through customer service, you know, can I make this out of this? And often the answer is like, just find another pattern, actually. You would be better off trying another pattern. If you want a t-shirt style, but in a woven, use the Montrose top. That looks a bit like a t-shirt, but it's made for a woven. Jean asked, does it address people who are short-waisted and short stature, i.e. like 5'1"? Yes, yeah, it does. And it goes into detail because again, another thing that's interesting, right? We draft for 5'6". So some people would say, well, I'm 5'1", so I need to reduce it by 5 inches. But unfortunately, it's not actually as simple as that. Now, let's see if I can find my... I wanted diagrams of this because I'm always trying to explain it. I don't know if this is going to show up very clearly. Okay. So this I'm saying is average. I don't even know if it is, but let's just say it's an average torso and legs. And I'm saying here's an example of someone who's shorter. But can you see their torso is exactly the same length as the 5'6" person. They just got shorter legs. So what that means is if that person's making a top, that top needs to be exactly the same length as the taller person's top. Right? It's the legs. If they were making jeans, they would need to significantly reduce it. So some people are exactly the same proportion, but smaller. but some people, the proportions are different. And here's an example, which is based on my friend. So I have a friend who's 5'10", and she shortens cashmere patterns that are made for 5'6", right? Shortens them. And that's because she has a really short torso. So she's got extremely long legs and a really unusually short torso. And so for her, again, like you would think, oh, you're making a shirt, better make it longer. No, she actually shortens it. So I've got a whole section that basically talks about how that works. And the thing that's amazing, I don't know why this keeps on going off. The thing that's super amazing is that it doesn't matter, you know, like doesn't matter what your proportions are. You can do whatever you want. For some reason, my computer keeps on putting my screen off. I don't know why that's happening. Okay. What is the default bust size for people in this group? Okay, I have a quick question. Ayala, can you tell me, do I keep on disappearing, or is it only disappearing on my end?
No, you're still there the whole time.
I can't tell. Cancel. Something is happening on my end.
See you fine.
So in terms of the bust, it's the same as regular cashmere patterns. So basically what that means is that we have bust sizes from C to H, and that's based on a differential between your high bust and your full bust measurement. And basically I go into explaining it in the book. Okay, I'm trying to work out why. Is that going to stay on now? For some reason, my computer is continually turning off. This is so unhelpful. Can you guys see that my computer keeps on turning off, or are you seeing me continuously? Can someone just
No, you're fine, Jenny.
The whole time, Jenny.
Okay or not okay? Then I can just keep on talking, even though you're seeing me. Okay, so even though this is incredibly annoying to me, it is working for you guys, so that's good. Okay, so what is another question? Do we show in the book how to grade between sizes? Yes, absolutely. So there's a whole section in there, and I show on different of the patterns so that you can get a sense between them which one, which approach you would take. The big one where there's a real difference is in princess seams. So when you have princess seams, you actually grade between sizes in a really, really different way. But in this case, it's okay. Just trying to see, yeah, someone's asking me if it's my battery, and it's quite funny. It's not my battery. My battery is plugged in, but it's literally like sending me off onto my like type in your password thing every like 5 seconds. But anyway, whatever, I will just pretend that it isn't and continue to speak to you guys. So yes, okay, so suggestions for low cost fabric for making muslins. So addressed in the book. Look at this, man. I'm like just addressing everything in the book. You know what? I'm going to try sharing my screen and see if that makes any difference, because maybe it thinks I'm doing something then. Let's see if that works. Oh, no, it did not. Oh, my goodness. Technology, guys. This is really annoying. So yeah, so for wovens, I'd say it's a little bit easier. So for wovens, you know, a lot of people will use like old sheets, like bed sheets, and you can get things at like a thrift store, or you can keep your old sheets, or maybe you can cut up muslins. For knit fabrics, it is harder. It's fairly rare that you can find like knit sheets. I mean, you can occasionally, but it's not really a common thing. So what I recommend then basically is just like keep on the newsletters of like the online fabric stores, you know, especially like the ones that have like big sales like fabric.com. And what I do personally is I will buy up large amounts of like things when they go on like $1.99 sales. So for instance, like if there's a jersey that goes on $1.99 sale, like, yeah, great, buy 10 yards of it. And then you can now use that for muslins. There isn't like a sort of a perfect answer to that one. The one that is the most kind of frustrating for people, and I appreciate that, but basically, if you're making jeans, it's actually really important to use like semi-decent denim, even to do your muslin. Because what I have found in my personal experience is that if you use something that's like very, very cheap, it often is a lot thinner, and it behaves in a different way, and it stretches in a different way. And that is like extremely difficult then to really assess what it's going to look like. Now, the upside is what you'll probably find is that your actual garment is going to look way better than you thought it was, because on the muslin it wasn't good. But I've had the situation where I'm driving myself nuts on my muslin, being like, what's this little line? What's this little line? And then I made it out of better denim, and those lines like disappeared. And it turned out that it was entirely that issue. So yes. Okay. So oh goodness me. Sorry. It's very hard because it's literally closing my screen about every 2 to 3 seconds, and it won't even let me. Oh, hold on. Won't even let me change this. Okay. So Corey, are you there? If you are, say hello in the chat. And I think that you can unmute yourself. I think I've set it. Let's see if Corey is there. It's a little bit hard when there are 100 people. Hello. Hey, Corey, how are you?
I'm fine. Hello.
Oh, we can't hear you yet. Hold on. Hopefully you're going to come there in a second.
Hello.
Still can't hear you. Oh my goodness.
No, I am unmuted.
Yeah.
I'm definitely unmuted.
The technology is not on my side today, is it?
Oh, some people are saying they can hear me.
We can hear you. Out here, we can hear you.
Oh, is it only me? I'm the one with the problem, apparently. Other people can hear Corey. Okay, Corey, well, you chat for a minute. I can't hear you, but apparently everybody else can.
You can hear me. Oh, hello, everyone.
So Corey, I would love you to tell people just a little bit about your experience with, you've had the book for a little while. So like, what you think of it, and generally just maybe a little bit about your sewing and how it sort of affected your life. Because I think you have like a great story.
Well, I've got lots of sewing books. So whilst it was fabulous to be taking part, when I had the sewing book, I didn't really read it for a couple of weeks. And then I had a free day, and I read it literally from cover to cover. And it's like no other sewing book that I've ever had. And I've got loads of sewing books. And I was amazed. I was amazed because being as I'm, 40G, and I'm like an 18 hip, and yeah, so I'm all kind of all over the shop. My ratios are out. It's really daunting to be making clothes where you have those ratios that you have to overcome with every pattern. So to read and to see it simplified, and it is simplified, you made it really doable. You've made it accessible and doable and not frightening. And that, I think, is a game changer. And I'm still amazed at this day and age that you were the only one out there that's done this. But that aside, so hello, I'm Corey. I'm a ceramicist, so I normally kind of got my hands covered in clay all day. But again, I really love fashion. I love clothes. I love looking, individual and different to other people. I like quirky. I quite like kind of 80s oversized things. But I like shape as well. And I was amazed when I started learning to sew about 5 years ago, that whilst there was none of that available in ready-to-wear clothes, none of it was available in sewing patterns either. I said, where are we going? Has feminism not happened? What's happening? So I was amazed that none of that had happened in the sewing community. So to find patterns that allow us that freedom, and Jenny has allowed that in her patterns, and she's a torchbearer in leading the way for those kind of patterns for us to be able to sew and wear exciting and unusual clothes. So I think we've come a long way in the 5 years that I've been learning to sew. I've seen a big difference in people wanting to have a kind of more choice and more diversity in their sewing patterns and inclusivity in sizes. So all of that is to be, Jenny's to be congratulated, because I think this book is amazing. And whilst I haven't done hardly any sewing this year, I'm sewing in fits and starts, like 20 minutes at a time. I can't wait to make some magna pants for myself. That's first on my list. I think I'm going to make at least 3. I'm definitely going to make the honeybone dress, and I want to try and make the curso top, but I want to make it as a dress. So I want to cut it and then make a gathered skirt for it. So those are my plans with the book so far. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Corey. This is a yellow. Let me see if I can, I don't know if you can see me here. Sorry, Jenny is trying to reset her Zoom and join back in, but thank you so much for sharing all of that. She's going to love watching back and hearing all the great things that you shared. And are you wearing the patterns that you modeled for the book? Are you wearing those now?
Yeah, the sandwich, and I'm wearing the mustard trousers.
Oh, nice. Love it.
Love
it.
The cap called the pants.
So what was it like? Oh, I think we lost you a little bit here. Corey, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry, hold on, let me pin you back. There we go. Sorry, I think we lost you for a second. What were you saying about the
Yes, I'm head to toe on cashmerette at the moment, but I've got the pattern for the calder pants, and I'm definitely going to make those as well. But yeah, I did do a podcast with somebody about sizing. Somebody in Australia, was it So Organized Style? And I had a little bit of pushback from kind of maybe some standard sizes that it was quite a difficult thing to make patterns for larger people. And I didn't buy that for 1 minute. You know, that's not acceptable to say that, because it's really hard to design for all sizes, whatever size you are. So why limit yourself to a certain group of sizes when, you know, you might as well design for everybody? And also, that's a bad business model, because we've all got money to spend, regardless of what size you are. So I think that is so that made me think that it's just about aesthetics, about why people make just smaller sizes. So then that leads to other questions about, you know, body politics. So I won't go into that now, but yeah, I think it's really important that diversity in sizes is paramount, because I know, and I'm sure all of us know, that if an item of clothing is good on us and fits and looks good, we feel fantastic, and we know that we look fantastic regardless of what our size is. So it doesn't, all of those ideas about, oh, I can only look good if you're really thin, or it has to look a certain way, it has to be on a certain body type. I don't believe in any of that at all, and that everybody can look fabulous, and that confidence, I think, will show through. And sewing gives you that, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Corey. And thank you very much also for bearing when I actually left the Zoom just then, upgraded our account live and came back in. And yes, snaps for Corey. I'm seeing here, everyone saying that you did it. Everyone was very interested in what you were saying. And someone just asked, is Corey on Instagram? Hell yes, that's where I found Corey. She is ceramic67 on Instagram. She has phenomenal personal style. I love it. She also sells highly comfortable ceramic jewelry, which sells out very, very quickly. So if you would like some, and it is featured right now on Corey, it's featured in the book on Corey, and indeed she gifted me some and I wear it all the time. So you should definitely check Corey out. We had some of the other models couldn't get in either. Guys, I've really learned my lesson here. I had no idea that we had all these limitations on our account. but we had lots of lovely models, Emily and Miranda and Dibs. Oh, and Emily is back. See, I just upgraded on the spot. Emily, I'm gonna unmute you so you can chat a little bit as well. Hold on.
Hello.
Find you. Hello. Hold on, I have to unpin myself.
I got in.
Well done.
Yay.
Highlight. How do we do? Spotlight for everybody. Continue. There we go. Yes, sorry about that. Turns out that we're only allowed 100 people on Zoom. Who knew? But now I upgraded live.
You just made my own face so big. I'm gonna change it.
Such a lovely face that it is too. So you probably recognize Emily from the book, and not only that, she's even wearing the dress at this precise moment.
The cardigan, because it's very cold.
It's a moment. Also very, look, it goes with that cardigan so well. And one of the things actually I should have mentioned is that we actually have little interviews with each of our lovely models in the book, because, you know, I have a point of view, but it's just one point of view, and there's lots of different points of view. So Emily had the opportunity to tell her story a little bit in there. But I was wondering, Emily, if you could just talk for like a couple of minutes about how like sewing and fitting clothes has like affected your life, because I think it's affected lots of us in different ways. And I think your perspective is also super interesting.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Emily. Yeah, I mean, quite similar to Corey, really, that like I always felt like I could never buy the clothes I actually wanted to wear. And I was buying clothes I could buy because they came in my size. And I felt like I had a wardrobe of things which fit me, but that I didn't really like. And what I liked didn't come in my size, and what came in my size was sort of good enough. And I was quite lucky because I was actually working at the publisher of Jenny's book a while ago now, six years ago. And so they have a craft list, and I was just decided to take a sewing book home. And I was like, you know, maybe I can try this. I did an art degree, so I was kind of like crafty and looking for something that I could do that was creative. And just gave it a go. Well, it was quite challenging because it didn't actually come in my size, the patterns. So I did have to grade the patterns up at the same time I was learning how to sew, which wasn't very successful. It was like an A-line skirt, and all I did was add width. So it was literally a flat triangle. Yeah. It was like stuck out like a lampshade, but I was so incredibly proud of it. And I was just completely hooked. And that feeling of like, I've chosen this fabric, I've decided I like this pattern, / at that point, it only had 3 seams and I could make it. It was very like liberating. And I suddenly, and obviously that project wasn't very easy because it was the first one, but then the more you sew, and I had like a light bulb moment at one point where I was like, I can do this, and I can make literally anything. I could make anything. Like I could just buy some amazing fabric and make myself exactly what I want to wear. Very like liberating feeling. And that was 2014. So, you know, the maths, I don't know how long about this, but yes. And I've never looked back. And now I have a wardrobe of clothes I love. And I never look in my wardrobe and think, ugh.
I mean, one of the things I love about
your
wardrobe, Emily, is that I think you have like this really awesome, like vibrant, fun style. And we see it also, like if you follow Emily Noto on Instagram, you'll also see like her very cool house, and she has like an amazing mural. And to me, it's like, that's the kind of stuff like that literally doesn't exist, right? Like one, in bigger sizes, like you can't even get it. But second of all, like even regardless of the size, like to have that like tailored to your body in exactly the fabrics you want, I mean, it's pretty much not available unless you can sew and learn to fit those things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it's the feeling of like when you go shopping and the clothes don't fit you and you're like, there's something wrong with my body because my body doesn't fit the clothes. Yeah. Actually, the problem isn't anybody's body. The problem is the clothes. Yeah. The problem is sewing patterns that don't come in your size. It's not, I think when you have that shift in your brain, that's like, it's not a fault of mine or anything I have to fix. It's a fault of the structures that exist that don't want to support me and make me happy. Yeah, so I love sewing.
Yeah, it's very liberating, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's hard for people on the outside. Like I explain sometimes to people I make sewing patterns, and it seems like to people who don't sew, and it seems very sort of pedestrian and like, okay, well, my grandma did that. And then you end up sort of explaining like, no, you don't really understand like the power of what happens when you're able to make things that express your personality and feel comfortable physically and feel comfortable like mentally, you know, like this is me. Because I always felt like, as you guys can probably tell, I have a fairly big personality. And I always felt very like dumbed down in the plus size clothes that were available for me, you know? And I was like, this isn't me. Like I'm bigger than this, like in a, you know, emotional way. Like I'm bigger. I want to express myself in fun things. So yeah, well, thank you very much, Emily. You were also an unbelievably great model. So, oh, look, now I see that I am no longer the host on Zoom. I am, in fact, a participant. So let's see what I'm able to do here. Hold on. La, 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 la. Spotlight for everyone. There we go. Oh, and now you can barely see me. Guys, this is not a day of mastery on Zoom for me. But you can see I just moved into my new house. It's nice, isn't it? I like my little study. It's sort of pink. I feel like, Emily, you would approve of this. I got a pink study. So thank you so much, Emily, for sharing. So yeah, we're coming towards the end of the hour. So if anyone has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So just to recap, if you ordered early, you are very likely to get your copy soon. And if you ordered from Cashmere, they will all send out on Friday. So now it's just up to the USPS magic to when they get to your house. If you're ordering now, they're on back order pretty much everywhere. So just what I've realized is that some stores are saying that and some aren't, but the reality is they all are, whether they say they are or not. So if you order now, it will be like a couple of weeks before you get your copy, but they will get there eventually. Andrea quickly asked, will we do fabric kits for the patterns? No. So we're actually unlikely to do fabric kits moving forward because we have moved to a fulfillment house, which means our patterns are now being sent from a totally different location. And we don't really have the capacity to do fabric kits anymore. We may do them in collaboration in the future. But what I would say is that all of the patterns in the book, they do not require like unusual fabric. So it's not like, oh, I have to find denim with a particular stretch and that's quite hard. They're really quite basic things. Like you could make things like the Curso out of the quilting cotton, and that wouldn't be any problem. The Stanway t-shirt, totally basic jersey, like any kind of jersey would work for it. Maybe the thing that's slightly harder is like the Ponte for the Foxhill, like finding nice Ponte. But we do, you know, we will have stuff on the blog and you can always email us. So if you want to like chat more about Ahead of the Curve, our Facebook community groups, we have two. One is for all sizes and one is just size 12 plus, if you would prefer to just be in that environment. Loads of chat there. I'm on there all the time answering questions. You can also always email us directly. You will actually get the beautiful Ayala, who is just over there, and she will get back to you. So you can email us at hello@cashmere.com. And someone asked, so we did have, and it sort of ended yesterday, but we did have a sort of special offer going, which is if you pre-ordered the book before the launch day, which is today, you can enter a draw, which is going to happen, I think, like later this week. Logistically, that's how we're going to do it. You have to theoretically enter by the end of today. And basically, you just send your proof of purchase. Doesn't matter who you bought it from. You just send a screenshot, like I bought it. And you send it to Ahead of the Curve at Quadrille, QUADRILLE.co.uk. And one person will be selected randomly to get a personal one-on-one Zoom fitting experience with me. So we've said it's an hour, but I actually think probably it makes more sense to do 2 half hours where I'll spend a half hour chatting with you about what are the challenges you find in patterns and like what would I recommend, depending on who wins it. Like I would suggest potentially make some muslins in advance because I'll be able to help you more if I see that. And then have another session where you've made some changes and we can talk through it again. So obviously, you know, it's great having a book, but there's not really any substitute for actually having a person who knows how to do it, looking at what you're doing and giving you the opportunity. So we have tons and tons of super exciting things coming from Cashmere in the next couple of months. So if you're not already signed up to our newsletter, absolutely do, because there is some sort of like exclusive information and abilities to sign up early for that. We have like a really big thing launching in January, totally new, something you have never seen from Cashmere before, which is very exciting. Tons of work, but very exciting. So we have that coming up. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I honestly never thought when I decided to write this book that it would sell out so quickly and have such a phenomenal response. It's been gorgeous seeing like your responses online. It sort of fills my heart every single time. So thank you all again. And as I said, if you have any questions, just always reach out. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day.